In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to power through tough situations with Tatum Davis. So, Tatum.
Hi.
How you doing? The reason why I ask you to come to the podcast is because I think you have a beautiful story.
Thank you.
We probably met like 10 years ago.
Yeah, pretty close to it.
Yeah. It was really good. So she came to, I was living, we both were living in Florida. Now we live in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Well, you live in Ohio.
I live in,
yeah. So back in the day, she came to get a tattoo, and all of a sudden one day, disappeared. That was in Florida, right? Why were you in Florida?
So I, for many, many years, struggled with substance abuse. And in my teens and my early 20s, right, I was pretty manageable. Things were good until one day things were like really not good. I actually, a big moment for me was my mother approached me, and was like, "What's going on with you?" And that's when I told her, "Mom, I'm addicted to heroin." And she let out this huge sigh. And it was a sigh of relief because my mom has also historically been an alcoholic and sort of knows about living sober. And the fact that she was so relieved that I had finally owned and admitted that I had a problem that she knew about for a while, to me, like, that was the moment for me. I was like, there's something we can do about this. So we checked me into a detox. I spent 11 days there, and then I went down to Florida for rehab for a 30-day program. And so I made the decision, right, once I was down there, to live in sober living for about a year. And that's at one point I came to see you for a tattoo. And then I ended up pregnant while I was down there. And that was the moment I needed to go back home for some support, because I just really wanted to be around my family.
But at that point, you start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but you still not in this. Because today, you just open a magnificent store, beautiful, very connected, with your insides, right? Mm-hmm. This is very connected with your soul, because knowing you for so many years, this speaks a lot of who you are and how you are. Mm-hmm. This is truth. This is you. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna open a store because I'm gonna make money. No, clearly this is 100% you.
Yeah.
So what happened in the middle?
Right, it's been 10 years. So in the beginning, I had my child. I was doing the mother thing. I was really learning who I was. I think because I used drugs at such an early age, I never got the chance to know who I am and what is my purpose here on this earth and things like that. So for years and years, I was a teacher. I was a high school teacher. I was working with youth. I always knew I wanted to be connected to people because connection's huge for me, and helping. But it wasn't until it was about 4 years ago now. I started working with a medicine woman, and I started going into therapy, and I started to really take a look at my insides and clear out some of the darkness and really be like, oh, this is who I am, and this is what I want to convey to the world.
What would you say, how important you think it is, the combination between conventional therapy and some holistic or alternative therapy is?
I think they are both equally important. And for me, in my experience, one can't go without the other. So a lot of my holistic therapy does a lot in my body. So a lot of breath work, a lot of like really being present and embodying, where traditional therapy, it's a lot of mental, which I get in trouble when I sit up in my head too much, but there is a certain level of intellect that I need to understand about my brain and about how it works based on how I was raised. That helps me to kind of have compassion for myself. But I've found them working together beautifully.
That's beautiful. I like to highlight that because it's like I always think the people have tendency to stuck with like regular therapy, and it's like it's very difficult from a conscious point bring unconscious things that are stuck in your brain, like in the back of your brain, and make them conscious to start working. That's where the holistics and the alternative therapies come in place, because through those therapies you make things conscious. Those things that are in the back of the head, those are the things that actually they're working into your personality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I recently did a therapy with this person. She's from Argentina, so she's a yoga teacher, and she's very into like alternative therapies, but she's also a psychologist. So she does a type of therapy. There is like it's a transgenerational therapy, something like that. So you work with your ancestors and all that stuff, and all those things that like, and it's crazy because it makes you realize how much of our heritage do we have in us, and how much impact little words or little things create in our personality. So through the therapy, I was capable to like make things conscious, and once you make these things conscious, it's when you can start actually working on those things to modify, because some things that it can be very beneficial for you, some things that it can be like terrible, and it will be working against you, and they will holding you back in order to like growing and things like that. So doing that, I think it's very beautiful, that like what you just said, like the combination of both to bring the conscience and then work through therapy, because it's very important. You can go full wishy-washy. You can go for like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go in the woods all and like make a fire. Like, no, it has to be a balance. But through the balance is how you go forward. That's
absolutely. I really like what you said about working with ancestors. That's something I did as well with. So some of the thinking that kept me in my active addiction and that kind of held me back was this victimizing. Like, I am a victim of my life, right? Oh, poor me. You don't know the family that I had, the upbringing I had, the history. And through working with my medicine woman, I was able to dramatically shift that thinking. So it's like I was able to go back and look at the people that I came from and see how each one of them was genuinely just trying their best. And I was able to follow the thread and be like, okay, well, here's where I am. Like, I am at the best. Let's keep going. I did work with forgiving my father with her too. That really transformed my relationship with him before he passed away. That just projected me into this new type of maturity, if that makes sense.
I think that's beautiful, because it's like I am personally in a similar situation where like my dad, he decided to not to talk to me for the 5 years previously to he passed away. And he passed away a year ago, and of course, you know, like has a son, you hold anger in there. It's like, why in the fuck you choose to do that stuff? You know what I mean? It's like, dude, like, just, you know what I mean? There's things that you don't understand, but through working, like after working with this stuff, it helped me to recognize all the good things that my dad left on me previous that. And if it wasn't for that, I would not be capable to be here, because I live in, and I wasn't born in here, so I live in a foreign country by myself, because my entire family is in Argentina, and I'm capable to do all this thanks all the tools that my dad led me in those years that we were together. So
Yeah.
me as a human, it's kind of like a, you know what I mean, like I want to like bury the entire thing, like come from my dad, but actually that's impossible, because 50% of my body,
Yeah.
it's my dad, and probably I would say 30% of my personality, it comes from my dad too. You know what I mean? So those are those things that like I feel like people in general has tendency, or at least I'm speaking of myself, but I had tendency to like separate myself from all that. Like, oh, I'm a separate unit. I'm a separate individual from all this family thing. But in reality, it's not, because you're part of that whole group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's very beautiful, the fact that it embrace the unity, because even so, to the ones that they're not here, they still connected to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely feel that. And there's a lot of stuff that I realized through working with my medicine woman through this grief, specifically because my dad passed away 2 years ago. There's a lot of stuff that I was not going to be able to heal in this life, like while he was still alive. Like there were certain things that I couldn't even be aware of or know until after his death. And so it really put the spin on dying and death and grief as not being so negative.
Beautiful.
Right? There's so much that I have learned through that process.
Beautiful. Not until they passed away, they're not realizing certain things, because is the mind in place all the time. It's like, who freaking knows what's going on with these people in their life, and they make them act or react that way. You know what I mean? And we suffer for that because we're childs and we don't understand what are they doing that. But they're also humans.
Right.
The same, like at this point we're an adults and we're like living our lives. You have a daughter, I have a daughter. We're trying to do our best in order to like raise them up. You know what I mean?
They're gonna have issues with us.
Correct. And it's always gonna be like that.
Yeah.
Always gonna be like that. Because it's like, it's just the process of life. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's just, but I like to highlight this thing. You were in a moment like we all did. Like I experienced similar stuff than you with drugs. And there is so many people out there that it went through the same thing. What I like to say is like, what did you use? What was your power wheel? What was your like your goal? What did you use to like power through the whole process? Because
for me, I just kept doing the next thing. Like I can get so stuck in my head. And so what I learned is just do it. Just act, and like the thoughts will follow. So when I turned up to be pregnant and I made the decision to keep my daughter, like what? Okay, now I'm going to move. I packed my car up and moved to Ohio, and that's what I did. I'm going to have to, and then eventually I needed a job. Well, I'm just going to go do it instead of trying to think and ruminate and just acting. And it was when I was working at my teaching job, I shared an office with my business partner. We were in an office teaching together.
Oh, nice.
And we were sitting there. We had sort of a bad day. And she turned to me. She's like, what would you do if you could do anything in the world? And it was at that moment, like, I actually never had anyone ask me that question. I didn't actually know, well, what do you mean? I thought you just did whatever came to you. Like, you're telling me I can create what I want. right? And so once I realized that, I just take one step towards whatever it is you want to do. And maybe that's figuring out what you want to do. The step I can sit down and write, but just do something, right? Don't sit and think and get lost in thoughts. And that's carried me through.
That's beautiful. Well, tell me, what's your name? Where are we at?
My name is Tatum Davis, and we are at my store that I co-own.
You guys should come to visit. Super good.
It's called Monmouth Street Mercantile, and it's a little corner shop here in Newport, Kentucky that my business partner Wendy and I co-created. We took all of our favorite things and put them in a shop, with the intent of bringing what we call enchantment into people's lives. We both feel that people take their lives too seriously, that they get so bogged down, and we want to bring things in a playful way, sweet, whimsical, get people back to nature. Nature's a huge source for me in my recovery. Yeah. And so we wanted to bring that to the community, to come in. There's self-help books, there's books on nature, there's books on foraging, there's, your bags and purses and fun, whimsical jewelry, just finding a more childlike way to explore and play.
Yes. My name is Patricio. This is Plexoprod-ThePodcast. Thank you so much for watching the interview with my friend Tatum Davis. Please like and subscribe, and remember, if you don't do the change, nobody will do it for you.